Podcast.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, and my daughter,
DeAnna
Bellomo. Excellent, DeAnna. So, for those of you who watch our podcast regularly, you know that recently we posted a podcast with DeAnna and I when we were talking all about scuba diving and social studies and the American Revolution.
Stay till the end if you want to learn about the fall of Rome to the Middle Ages and the Black Plague.
We will be talking today a little bit about the fall of Rome and the Black Plague. She definitely loves social studies.
They're very
as you
different,
learn.
though.
Yes, I know. And she, as she said in the last one, she absolutely loves social studies, so she wants to talk a little bit more social studies. We got great feedback on our podcast, and so many people were saying, please have DeAnna back. It was so much fun. So we have DeAnna back. So excellent. We're loving having her. I'm looking forward to it. So DeAnna, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Jeffrey?
I'm doing really well. Very, very well. So DeAnna, what's your favorite Broadway show?
Oh God, that's a hard question.
Well, talk about a couple of them then.
Okay, so my favorite. Oh, actually, this is good. Okay, this ties in great.
All right.
So, my favorite. Actually, I have two. Okay, this is great. Oh yes, this is payback from you turning the last one off. So, my first favorite Broadway show is, of course, Hamilton, because it talks about American history, and it's actually fairly accurate. But they kind of poorly depict the hoya between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. They weren't actually that competitive in real life. If anything, it was Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson had very, very different opinions. I shouldn't talk about too much about them because I actually haven't learned this stuff yet, but I can talk about it on another podcast later. And so, if anything, it was more of a shock when Alexander Hamilton decided to say, "Woo, vote for Jefferson," because they had completely different views. So it's why it enraged Amber so much. So now when you listen to Hamilton, you can kind of be more shocked. They don't lead it up as well as they should have because they don't really talk about Thomas Jefferson until the second act. It's Thomas Jefferson's coming home. That's great. Great song. I like that song a lot.
It's definitely a great show.
The dual casting in that show is really great because everyone plays two parts unless you're Hamilton or Burr or I guess Washington.
And the King too.
Or King George.
I love King George. He's really funny. If you've not seen Hamilton, you got to see it. King George is hilarious.
It's so good. And then my second favorite Broadway show is Six.
Six?
Which talks about the 6 wives of Henry VIII.
Very cool. Very cool. And name some other ones you've seen, and what have you liked? Or
I thought you were going to ask me to name the wives of Henry VIII.
I was not. Do you want to?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead. Name the wives.
So his first wife was Catherine of Aragon, and I'll talk a little more of them later, too. We can talk about Rome and Henry VIII. His second wife was Anne Boleyn. His third wife... Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. Okay. His third wife was... Jane Seymour. And then his fourth wife was Anne of Cleves. And then his fifth wife was Catherine Parr. And his final wife was... I need to listen to this on track again. Okay, there's... I'm going to figure this out. Catherine. I said Catherine of Aragon, right? I said Catherine Parr. There were a lot of Catherines. There were 2 Annes, Anne of Cleves and Anne Boleyn. There's okay. This might take me a minute.
That's all right.
Anne of Boleyn. We have Catherine Parr was the fifth wife. Who did he end with? It was a Catherine.
And she was living at his death.
Yeah, she was. She outlived him, which is really impressive. And then it was Catherine. Wait, we got to come back to this.
That's all right. Let's come back.
Google is always the answer.
All right. So tell us about some other shows. What were some of your other favorite shows? Or maybe talk about your favorite actors or actresses.
So, wait, what? My favorite actors and actresses?
Yeah, or some other shows. You've seen a ton of shows.
Ooh, Sutton Foster. Sutton Foster is brilliant. I love Sutton Foster. Oh, we saw The Music Man.
Yeah, and who played in The Music Man?
Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. Sutton Foster is the best, ever. She's so good. Her belt is amazing. And then we also saw Dear Evan Hansen is so good.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Catherine Howard was his 5th wife. Catherine Parr was his last wife.
Ah, so Catherine Parr is the one who lived past his death.
Yes, Catherine Howard was the one who died.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you said you saw Music Man.
Yes.
Hugh Jackman. Who else was in that?
Sutton Foster.
Sutton Foster. Anyone else or no?
Ooh, the one person from Only Murders in the Building. The TV show with Steve Martin and Martin Short.
Yeah.
She was Bunny, I think, or she was Bunny's mom.
Oh, cool. How about Into the Woods? That was a really good one.
Into the Woods, we saw Philippa Sue and Sarah Bareilles and Brian Darcy James. And then we also saw Dear Evan Hansen with Gaten Matarazzo.
That's amazing. Who is Philippa Sue?
She was Eliza Hamilton in Hamilton.
Yes, she was. That is very cool. Any other movies you liked, or shows, I mean? Any other Broadway shows you liked? How about Wicked?
Oh, you never go wrong with Wicked.
I love Wicked.
And Beetlejuice.
Yes, tell us about Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice was really good. So, we actually saw Beetlejuice because Dear Evan Hansen was canceled. We ended up seeing it later, but it was canceled, because their AC broke. And we were, rushing to go find a show. And Beetlejuice, if some of you know, is, right across the street. So we just kind of walked over, and we got rush tickets, and we got in on the side, and it was really good. And you actually really liked it.
I loved it. I love Beetlejuice. I didn't think I would, but you know what? It was really funny. I thought that was a really hilarious show. I'm a huge Wicked fan, personally. I love Wicked. It's one of my favorite shows.
You've seen Wicked a couple too many times.
I've seen it several. There is no doubt about it. Very, very true. Very true. All right, so let's see. We talked about Broadway.
Yes.
How about symphonies? You've seen a lot of... We go to the symphony quite a bit. What was your favorite symphony?
My favorite symphony might have been... that's hard. I guess my favorite symphony would have been John Williams' 90th birthday. It was a bunch of scores John Williams had conducted. It was little excerpts from their scores. And they played all of his best shows. Home Alone, there's Harry Potter, there was... Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List. What else?
Did you say Star Wars?
Star Wars, yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you did.
I think I forgot it.
Okay, very cool.
And it was so, so good. And then my favorite classical series we saw was probably the 6 Bach Brandenburgs, I think.
Oh, that was a
The Bach Brandenburgs. There were 6 of them.
And what's your favorite musical of all time?
Oh, God.
You're going to see it on Sunday.
Oh, Les Mis! I love Les Mis. That talks about, so Les Mis is actually, loosely related to the French Revolution. There's a lot of, inaccuracies to the book. But it talks about this, this failed attack that the British people had to the French, and it lasted, 24 hours. It actually wasn't all that great. But Victor Hugo, the author of the book, actually, saw it happen, so he decided to write a really dramatized book about it. And then it became a musical, and it's not all that... It's more, awesome than it really was. But the musical is amazing. Les Mis is the best thing of the entire world. I love... Les Mis is the best.
And who is your favorite... what's the lead actress in Les Mis? I apologize.
Huh?
What's the character, the female character in Les Mis?
Which one?
The main one.
There aren't many main female characters in Les Mis.
The main one. The only one.
What?
Come on, D.
Fontaine? Eponine?
Yeah, that's it.
Or Cosette?
No, Eponine.
Well, Eponine is a main side character. She's actually you actually see her halfway through the first act. And in Les Mis, if you're a main character who you don't listen to till Look Down, which is halfway through-ish the first act, they actually do ensemble stuff in the beginning of the show, which is super cool. And the only main character who does ensemble stuff after their main character role is Fontaine, because she starts the show and dies very quickly.
Yeah.
So,
who was your favorite actress that played Eponine?
Sutton Foster or Eva Noblezada?
And who else played in that? There was a couple others, right?
Frances Ruffelle.
Oh.
Carrie Hope Flesher.
That's who I was thinking of.
Yes.
Very cool. And who was your favorite?
Eva Noblezada.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Eva Noblezada was... Oh, Hadestown. Eva Noblezada was in Hadestown.
Oh, tell us about Hadestown, because I'm actually surprised you didn't say that was your favorite musical.
I forgot. Yeah, okay. So Hadestown is about the tragedy of Orpheus and Eurydice, and it talks about his journey to the underworld, and I won't spoil it, because that's like the whole point of the musical, but actually it's kind of foreshadowed in the beginning of the musical if you listen very closely. But it's about his story about, well, it's a little bit different actually. In the book, Eurydice gets bit by a snake on her wedding day and goes to the underworld. But in the musical, she chooses to go because Orpheus wasn't a very good boyfriend.
Oh, so it's not that's not the actual
Not
story?
really, actually. It's a little bit different.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Is the ending the same in both?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we won't tell them the ending.
No
We
spoiling.
don't want to ruin that. Now, if I was to ask you the question again, what's your favorite musical? What would you tell me?
I would say Hadestown.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last podcast, I think you said it was Hamilton or...
No, this podcast.
No, it was the last one.
No, it was this podcast.
Oh, it was this podcast. Oh, yeah, it was.
It was my ironic answer.
And what was the other one? Hamilton and...
Six,
yeah, because it was history.
History.
Right, but
And
your
history
favorite
musical's
musical.
the best.
But you love Hadestown.
Hadestown is like, it's a classic. It's not really classic. It's only been around since 2019 on Broadway, but it's so good.
Did it win any awards?
Yeah, it won Best Musical at the Tonys.
Nice. Very cool. It is a really good show. In fact, all the ones that we have said were incredible shows. I also love Lion King in Chicago. They were very good shows as well. But
You saw Chicago?
I did.
Was it good?
It was very good. Yeah, I love Chicago. We'll have to get you there. Yeah. I don't know. Is it still on?
Yeah, it's the longest running revival in Broadway history.
There we go. Well, then we'll have to check that out. So if you're listening to our podcast today on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, we hope that you are enjoying the podcast so far. Just a reminder, please remember that this is for informational and educational purposes only. Although I guess we've just been talking about Broadway today, so no legal advice so far. So what else do you like, DeAnna? What's your favorite subject?
History.
I thought you were going to say that. So tell us a little bit about, you had mentioned on the last podcast that you wanted...
yes, Rome.
Yeah, so tell us about Rome a little bit.
So, Rome. Rome is a giant empire. We're going to go like halfway through the empire. So Rome is giant, right? And Rome went from a republic to a sort of dictatorship quite quickly. Well, not quickly. Actually, that's not true. So Rome was a republic, the Roman Republic. And then Julius Caesar comes around, and he is like, I am the best. All hail Caesar. Go Caesar. And Caesar made a lot of people mad. And eventually, he was, like, killed by his besties, kind of. But he was, like, arguably the first dictator-esque person of Rome. But who followed him was Augustus. And not from Willy Wonka. And Augustus ruled for a long, long time, actually. And he did a bunch of great stuff. Like, he made a bunch of, like, waterways in Rome. And he did some cool stuff. And Augustus also made... Emperor Augustus made the Praetorian Guard, which is kind of equivalent to the Secret Service of today. And eventually, Rome had a slow and steady decline. Eventually, this Praetorian Guard Augustus made would basically end up, like, killing their rulers because they didn't like them. And so, eventually, it got to a point where Rome didn't have good government ruling, and the Huns and, like, Germanic tribes were attacking Rome, and Rome just couldn't handle it. Now, Rome had a very, very good army, and the Roman army was great. And even though Rome kind of discombobulated towards the end, they still had their army, which was fabulous. And when Rome fell, all of these people attacking had their own little kingdoms now. But because the Roman army wasn't there anymore, people needed a way to stay safe. And that's when feudalism gets introduced. And feudalism is when the big leaders give land to the little people in return for the little people giving them food and, like, their loyalty and stuff. So, feudalism acted as, like, I guess you could say, like, the Roman army of the Middle Ages. And the Middle Ages were also called the Dark Ages, the medieval times, but it wasn't really a dark age because a lot of stuff happened, like, that was good during that time, but the Middle Ages are sometimes called the Dark Ages because they went into a dark age. Rome stopped the cool stuff stopped, and things kind of went to a stop. And honestly, the thing that defines a dark age is if you look back on the past 20 years ago, and you think, man, they had it better than I had it. And that's what happened in the Middle Ages. There were knights, and there were squires who were like baby knights, kind of. But it just wasn't as good. Like, living conditions weren't as good. The life expectancy wasn't as good. So, eventually, feudalism would fall, and the Middle Ages would fall because the Black Plague hit. And the Black Plague wiped out, like, some historians estimate almost 60% of the population. And it was spread through rats and fleas, and it was gross. And it wasn't a very happy time in history. And it took, like, hundreds of years to the population to go back up to where it was before the plague. But when the plague hit, the lower class people who were working for these upper class people said, yo, we want to get paid for our work, because in feudalism you got paid by land and safety. And now they were like, wait, there aren't as many people to do work now, so we want to get paid. And the people who were up were like, fine, whatever. So feudalism kind of ended, and everything kind of just started going in slowly to like becoming back to normal, no more feudalism. And then eventually the Renaissance would hit. And the Renaissance started because of the Humanist Act, which really was it basically said humans are great, they are the center of their own universe, and humans should be educated in arts and literature and stuff. And that's when things took off, and art started, and there were like people called Renaissance men, like Leonardo da Vinci, who were like smart at everything. He was an engineer, he was an artist, like the Mona Lisa, and things were great in the Renaissance. And then it started into like what we call it now, like modern day stuff. So Rome was super interesting, and I could go into detail, but I'm not going to.
What about the Black Plague? You mentioned the Black Plague earlier.
The Black Plague hit because of flea carrying. So it was transferred through fleas, and those fleas were transferred through rats on ships. And the Black Plague, historians believe, started in Asia, and it got to this little trade city called Kaffa, I believe. And okay, so Kaffa was a trade city. It was right between Asia and Europe, and the plague hadn't hit yet. It hit Asia, not Europe. Now, this trade city was kind of like a standstill, right? And the Huns, one of the leader of this tribe, I think, might have been the Huns, I don't know. Now, he had men who were hit by the plague. Ooh. And this person decided that he wanted to invade this trade city. So, the first version of biological warfare we are aware of became real. He flung his dead soldiers, carrying the disease, on through the wall into this trade city. And now the people in the city get attacked, and they ended up invading, but they also ended up spreading the Black Plague to millions of people. So, not a good job on the leader of that job's part, but he did get what he wanted, and he might have died in the process too. But you know what? Good for him. He invaded, and he got what he wanted, while also spreading the plague to millions of people that would hurt the population for thousands of years. But you know what? Good for him.
Oh, wow.
The Black Plague was super, super crazy, scary, and no, you did not want to be alive in that time. Don't go back there.
Oh, man.
But Rome was a great time. Well, kind of. There was Praetorian Guard in Rome, and actually, there were, like, Rome had created the first, like, fire company and police force, like, lower than the Praetorian Guard, obviously. And those were, like, convicted criminals who, like, got out and, like, they did something good with their life, which is great. Good for them. There was also gladiator fights, and the Colosseum was built by Emperor Tiberius. Not Tiberius. Tiberius was a bad emperor. Nero was evil. He burned Rome.
Ooh.
This bad emperor. There were some crazy emperors in Rome's history. But the Colosseum was built for gladiator fights, and gladiator fights were not cool. They were not friendly to gladiators. Gladiators could have been anyone from, like criminals to, like, really anyone. Rome decided that they should, like, fight in battle. And, yeah.
Yikes.
Rome was crazy.
Wow. Any other times in history that you love or that you want to talk about?
Cleopatra.
Okay.
She was cool.
Sweet.
Cleopatra was the final queen of Egypt, and she ended up okay, so her and Caesar had a thing. They went on a fling, And I think they had like kids together or something. And then Caesar ended up like dying because of his friends turned on him, and Cleopatra was left lonely. And she made friends with Caesar because he helped her Egypt, which has been around for like thousands of years at this point, and Egypt was not doing so hot. So Cleopatra needed Rome to help her be strong. And when Caesar went bye-bye, she needed a new friend. And that new friend was Mark Antony. Oh. Mark Antony and her would end up dying together, and no one really knows why. It could have been by like a snake bite, could have been by poison, not really sure. No one knows where her burial site is, so it's all based off of fake stuff. But her and Mark Antony, Shakespeare actually wrote a play about them.
No kidding.
Cool love story, kind of.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes, Charlemagne. So, we're skipping like thousands of years later. Charlemagne was a king in the Middle Ages, and his dad... Okay, Charlemagne had a brother and a dad, like some people do, I guess. And his dad was an emperor of an area of big land. And when the dad died, in his will, maybe, oh, look at that, Dad might have said, yo, little children, you now get half of my land and you get the other half. Now, Charlemagne didn't like this. Charlemagne was kind of like, I want it all. And some historians think he might have killed his brother for the whole land. Now, when his brother died, Charlemagne got all the land. And Charlemagne actually was a good and bad person at the same time. So, he made the first version of public school, like a royal public school system since the Roman Empire. Now, that's back to the Dark Ages, you know? Things weren't as great as they were in Rome. And the schooling system for all classes educated children. And Charlemagne had a good education, and he was like, I want other children to have this too, which was a good thing for him to do. Now, he also was Christian, and he created the Holy Roman Empire when he was all big, and he got the Pope to ordain him. And in that time, there was really no separation between church and state. So what happened was he ruled, and he told everyone that they would be Christian or they would die. And he killed a lot of people, but he also did some good things and bad things. So, like, a lot of things in history, everyone did bad things in history, but they also did some good things. So you have to, like, kind of weigh the balances. Like, Nero, he didn't really do anything good. So I guess you could say he was, like, a bad person. But, like, Charlemagne, he did some good stuff. He got kids educated, which is great. But he also was, like, convert or die, which is not good.
No.
So, you know, it's just kind of, like, balance. But Charlemagne was cool, too.
Sweet. So on the last podcast, DeAnna, we talked a little bit about scuba diving.
We did, yes.
And we got a lot of listeners who love that podcast and who are asking all kinds of wonderful questions about it and about the dives and where were we and who were we with and all that. But the question that I have is the other question that people have asked is, you know, you were certified at a young age, obviously. Yeah. You are now a junior master diver at the age of 13. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, you started when you were 10.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we've been getting is, how do you feel about a 10-year-old scuba diving, and is it too young? What are your thoughts, DeAnna?
It really depends on the person. Like, you have to be responsible, and you have to be ready for, like, a challenge, kind of. It takes a lot of practice, and the key with diving is just to do it over and over again until you learn stuff. But I don't think 10 is too young. It's just a matter of if you're willing to, like, put yourself out there, put, like, someone else out there and, like, try it. And there's always, like, trier classes. Like, you can test out if you like scuba, and if you try it and you're like, no, this isn't for me, then okay. But if you try it and you're like, yeah, this is cool, then, you know, get certified, do some fun stuff.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of amazing things.
Yeah.
On the last podcast, you told us about some of your favorite dives, but I have to say, interestingly, you didn't mention your night dives that I think are some of your favorites. So tell the listeners about the night dive that you were on, or a couple night dives that you were on. So
night diving is when you dive at night, and all the marine life comes out at night. Most marine animals are nocturnal, which means they hunt at night and they sleep during the day. So on night dive, you can see animals, not necessarily hunting, but you can see like a bunch of, depending on where you are, of course, you can see eels, a lot of eels we saw on that dive in the Caribbean. We saw a turtle, actually. We saw an octopus moving, which is like super rare because octopus are always camouflaged, but that was really cool. There was squid on that dive. It was crazy cool dive.
Yeah, it was a cool dive. So, yeah, and I agree with DeAnna. I think it has more to do with the child themselves. You know, not all 10-year-olds are probably ready. but that's where you need to rely on your instructor and rely on them and make sure that the student is ready, as DeAnna definitely was. And as I alluded to on the last dive, she's an amazing diver, and she's even better than me, but don't tell her because I don't want it to go to her head, all right? So I want to thank you all for joining us. DeAnna, thank you for coming today on the podcast. Thank you, the listeners, for joining the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, and for today, DeAnna Bellomo as well. Remember, please do not take what was said today as legal advice. It is merely for informational and educational purposes, and every child should be evaluated independently to make sure that they are ready to dive and to be safe.
I guess
Excellent.
we did talk about Charlemagne's will in this video. So.
Yes, we did.
There was something else.
That is true. We did talk a little bit about estate planning elder law. As always, the Red Wagon Estate Planning Elder Law Show is all things estate planning and elder law and anything else we choose to talk about. So today was and anything else we choose to talk about category. It's always fun doing a podcast with DeAnna. We look forward to doing it again in the future. You keep those comments coming. Be sure to like us. Be sure to follow us. Be sure to forward these podcasts on to your friends and anyone who will listen. That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning Elder Law Show. We look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks for joining us.
Just to review, the order of Henry VIII's wives goes Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, Catherine Parr.
Excellent job, DeAnna. Thank you for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show. Until next time, I'm
Bye.
Jeff and DeAnna, and we're out.